All right, gang. Today we are going to spend some time talking about production, specifically the preparation phase of the Inspired Delivery System. So, if you're working through these sequentially, you'll know that so far we have talked about what does it look like at the point of sale. So, what does the design associate need to do while they're still in the home to ensure a very successful branded experience for the customer, right? Today, or I should say in this session, we're going to spend some time talking about preparation. So now that the design associate is back in the office, what is it that they need to do? What is it that the production coordinator or the office manager needs to do to start to prepare to do this production job? So the job's already been landed. How are we going to prepare to make sure that this kicks off the right way? And then, of course, after we get through this session, future sessions, we'll talk about organization, communication, all the way through to the end of the job. So let's dive into the preparation stage. What does this phase look like for the Inspired Delivery System? Well, the first thing that we're going to make sure happens is that the design associate comes back into the office. They complete a folder. They get a folder ready to go. And yes, we're talking about a manual manila folder, right? I know that there's some franchisees that have moved this to an electronic format. I would encourage you to start manual so that you kind of get a feel for what it is that you want to do. And then if you want to move it electronic, feel free to do so. I do know that there's some serious advantages to working with it manual, even in the long term, to actually having a paper folder. But we'll talk about that in the future. So what does it look like for the design associate to get that folder started? What is a job jacket? How do they do the work order? What kind of paperwork is involved? What does it look like for the office manager or the production coordinator to order the materials, to kit the materials, to make sure that all the schedules are aligned? If there's third-party services, that those are in place. And one little detail that sort of bugs people from time to time is, what do we do with the trash? So when we're pulling out an old floor, it creates a lot of trash. What do we do with that? How do we handle that? So we'll talk about that as well too. Um, it fits under preparation because it's all part of the planning of how we're going to handle this job. So let's start with the job jacket. So imagine, if you will, that your design associate has come back from landing a job. Now, in the home, what did they do? They made sure that their proposal was complete. They did the customer needs template. They took their production video. They left the customer with a copy of the project roadmap. So all that stuff was done in the house. Now the design associate is back in the office. They need to get some stuff together. They need to get organized to be able to sit down with the production manager, the project coordinator, the office manager, whoever it is that's going to run production. They need to get their stuff organized so that they can sit down and have an intelligent conversation with the person that's going to run production. There is going to be a handoff that gets made so that the design associate can go and continue to sell, and that the person that's running production has a decent shot of being able to pull this off without needing the design associates, helping hand all the way through the process. So the first stage is to just go ahead and get a folder set up. And on the face of that folder is going to be this job jacket. Now, I know this print is small. I'm going to blow this up in a moment, but this is essentially what it looks like. Is they're actually going to have a job jacket on the face of a manila folder. It's not complicated, and we don't need to overcomplicate it. You can print these directly on folders. You can go to Staples or Office Depot and take the format. You're going to download the format from Flora 11 in a PDF format. You can take that PDF to a Staples or an Office Depot, Office Max. They can print them on folders for you. You know, low key, low technology is to print it out on paper and then tape it or staple it to the outside of the folder. Obviously, there's a risk of it ripping off the face. I would much rather print this directly on the folder so that there's no way for it to get lost or mishandled. But there's a ton of different ways to do this. The point is that you want these printed on the folder so that you have this on the outside of the folder so that anybody looking at the outside of this folder can see exactly what the status of this project is. Just so that you have it as a reference, there's a lot of different printers that will allow you to print the job jacket directly on the folder. If you'll search for wide format printer, 13 by 19, that's what you're looking for. Most of these wide format printers, you can see they're not terribly expensive. A lot of these printers will allow you to print directly on a manila folder. You have to feed them in one at a time. Or again, you could go to an Office Max or Staples and have them do it. my guess is after you run through a couple of boxes of folders, you probably could have paid for a printer yourself instead of paying Staples or Office Max to do it. But nevertheless, you've got options here. So that's getting the job jacket on the folder, minor detail. Let's actually look at the job jacket in detail. And for that, I just want to pull it up separately so that you can see what this looks like. And we can blow this up a little bit. So what information is here? Well, this is really sort of a checklist of everything that's going to happen with respect to production. So your design associate would fill this out to start with. So there's a handoff that happens between the design associate and whoever's managing production. For the sake of it, so that I'm not having to repeat myself, production coordinator, production manager, office manager, I'm just going to lump all that together and say production coordinator. In your business, it might be a different title, but I'm just going to, for the sake of keeping it simple, I'm just going to call him the production coordinator. So your design associate is going to hand off the job to the production coordinator, but they need to be able to give them information first. So the DA would come in and simply fill this out. What year is it? Start date. What is the preferred communication for the customer? How does a customer want to be connected with, whether it's phone, text, email? What is the customer's name? What is the project scope? Just briefly, what are the rooms that we're doing? Who was it sold by? Obviously, that's the DA's name, address, phone. Now, the DA is not going to know who the install team is. That's fine. The DA is going to fill out as much of this as they can. This is just getting the outside cover ready so that they can pass it over to production. And then once this is filled out, or that at least the top part of this is filled out, that's probably all the DA is going to do with this. The rest of this is going to be up to the production coordinator to fill out. All I'm asking the DA to do is to have the folder ready to hand to them, right? So what's involved here? Well, this is truly a list of everything that's going to happen in production. So you've got your handoff meeting, your introductory phone call, whether or not the check was deposited or QuickBooks was imported. Was the order placed like with the suppliers? Was the order placed with Shaw or Mohawk or Cali or whoever it is that you're ordering from? When is the product supposed to come in? Who's the install team? And has the work order been sent? We understand how many days it's supposed to take. Acclimation times. On the day of the install, what is the install date? Did we put yard signs out? Did we put door hangers out? Did we take before pictures? I mean, you can see this is very detailed here. Post-production, final walkthrough. Did we receive payment? Did we ask for a referral? Did we ask for a review? If you simply just check the boxes as you go through, this is a very, very detailed view of what it looks like to produce a job. What goes inside the job jacket? Well, 2 copies of the signed proposal. Why do we want 2 copies? At the end of the job, when you're going back and finishing up with the customer, you're going to keep a copy that the customer signs that says that the job is complete, and you're going to leave a copy with the customer where you can simply sign off and say that the customer is paid in full and that this job is finished. So that's why you want 2 copies, one for you and one for the customer. If there's any sort of financing paperwork, any receipts for this job, this is where you're going to automatically start the job costing right from the time that the job is landed. Order confirmation from the manufacturer. So if there's any paperwork, the master work order, any paperwork that's associated with this job is going to go in this folder. Receipts, everything, right? So this folder serves as sort of the brain for this one job. And the outside of the folder is this job jacket. So if you think about one install as being one job, this is the jacket, this is the outside cover for this job. All right, bouncing back into our presentation. And again, you can print the outside of these folders with a wide body printer. You can have them printed. You can print it out on paper and tape, staple, glue it to the outside. Again, the important part is that this is on the outside of the folder so that anybody, as you're looking and you're trying to look over the shoulder of your production coordinator, you can see the status of any job right there on the outside of the folder. All right, so what's going to happen inside the office within 24 hours? So this is time sensitive. Imagine, if you will, that somebody came to your home and they just sold you a $10,000 home improvement project. Maybe you're going to get your house repainted, or you're having a new roof put on. Maybe you're having an outdoor patio done or a deck. You just signed a $10,000 job. You're going to want some communication from the office within a short period of time. I mean, let's face it, maybe you wrote a check for $5,000. You kind of want to know, even though you trust the person that, I mean, you wrote a check to them, you kind of trust the person that was there and you've done your research and you sort of trust the company. There's still a nagging, part of your brain that says, I don't know if this guy's going to run off with my money or not. So having some communication with the customer within a couple of, within a day is really going to be important. So there is some time sensitivity to this from a customer perspective. There's also some time sensitivity to this with respect to the design associate's memory. So hopefully they've recorded everything in the proposal, they've recorded everything in the project video and the customer needs template. But you know what? There might be one little detail that they left out that they remember. Well, 3 or 4 days from now, they're not going to remember it. So let's do this handoff as fast as we can, so that we can take advantage of that short-term memory and make sure that everything gets done. So within 24 hours, we're going to make sure that the tablet is synced and that the job is marked as landed. Now, once in a while, and this doesn't happen very often, and it's typically just pennies, right? But once in a while, the price from the tablet and the price that you see in Salesforce, because of some rounding issues, they may be a few cents different. Obviously, the price that the customer signed, what they signed on the tablet, that is the number. So regardless of what it says in Salesforce, what the customer signed is the right number. So it might be that from time to time, again, this happens 1 in 1,000, but just make sure that when you sync your tablet, that the price from the tablet and the price in Salesforce are exactly the same. If you need to make a little adjustment in Salesforce, do it. Go ahead, if you didn't do it in the home, let the production coordinator or office manager run credit approval. Make sure that the work order is complete by the DA with as much information as they can. Now, you'll see when we look at the work order form that there's some information the design associate simply doesn't know. That's okay. What I'm asking to have happen in the first 24 hours is that my design associate puts on the work order everything they can. And then when they hand it off to the production coordinator is going to fill in the rest. And the DA needs to create the job folder. They're not going to manage the job jacket. They're just getting the folder ready so that when they sit down with the production coordinator, they actually have something to work with. So all the customer documents, the work order, 2 copies of the signed proposal, all that's going to go inside the job jacket. All right, so what does this work order look like? Well, I'm going to bounce out of this again and go to the actual work order form, but this is what a typical work order looks like. So you've got on the first page, you've got a bill of materials. Now, don't get hung up with this on the left-hand side. This is really to sort of help the design associate think, what do I need for demo? What do I need for install? Are there any sundries or is there any trim? It's not like these are line for line. In this particular case, the design associate sold a job to Teresa in Lexington, South Carolina. You can see the DA's name, the project coordinator's name and phone number. Now, the design associate does not know who the install crew is, but the DA does know the job number. This should be the Salesforce project number. So that Salesforce project number is a non-repeating number. And as a result, that makes a great number to be able to give to vendors as a PO number. It makes a great number for you to track as the job number because you can always search Salesforce for that number and get exactly the project that you were looking for. So the DA may know the source. In this case, the manufacturer is Shaw. The product is Champion. It happens to be a luxury vinyl plank. There's my SKU number. There's the color and how many square feet we're ordering. This particular order also needed a couple of multi-purpose reducers and 15 stair treads. They're also ordering from Cali the white stair risers. All right, so in some cases, your design associate is going to know who the source is. Most of the time they should. For like local stuff, primed white quarter round, we're just going to order that locally. The design associate may not know who it comes from. So in that case, they can simply put local, that's fine. The DA is putting the source, is putting the product, the SKU number, the color, and then the quantity or the unit of measure. So in this case, you can see there's some things that are in square feet, some things that are in inches, in some cases linear feet, in some cases, again, linear feet. this is why, and this is a really good example of why we don't simply print something out of Salesforce. The tablet feeds Salesforce. The tablet is an absolutely wonderful estimating tool, but it is not a production tool, and it was never meant to be a production tool. And when people try to use it as a production tool, it creates problems. So the work order is something different. Yes, this is a work order that's going to have to be quote unquote manually done in Excel or on paper, whatever works for you. But this is a perfect example. In the tablet is only going to say transition piece. Well, if I tell an office manager or a production coordinator to go order a transition piece, they have no idea what I'm looking for. So the DA needs to be specific and say, this is a multi-purpose reducer that we're ordering. This is why it is so important to have the design associate actually create a work order and not simply take the lazy way out and print something out of Salesforce. Because with Salesforce, there's too many placeholders. There's too many places where it's just a generic thing. Here's another example. Right now, the tablet only says quarter round. It doesn't say shoe mold. It does say baseboards, but it doesn't give the height of the baseboard. So if I'm looking for a primed white shoe mold, or if I'm looking for a painted quarter round, or if I'm looking for a 5-inch baseboard, the tablet doesn't have that in it. So I have to be specific. When I give it to an office manager or I give it to a production coordinator to go order it, I have to be very specific. The tablet doesn't allow me to do that. I mean, I can with local price lists and whatever else, but from a default standpoint, if I simply leave it as default, it's going to just tell me it's just going to tell me quarter round. It's not even going to give me the color of it. When you get to the work order, you need to be much more specific than what the tablet says. And so this work order should literally take a design associate 5 minutes to do. They're not doing it for every job they go to. They're only doing it for the jobs they land. And it is worth the 5, even 10 minutes that it takes to do a work order to make sure that what they're handing the project manager is 100% correct without a lot of, placeholders or gaps in it. You'll notice that the second page of the work order, now you get into the work order, where the first page was a bill of material. The second page is now what it is that I want the installer to do. So I've got remove carpet and pad, install LVP stairs, install quarter round, and I've got the quantities here. Now you'll notice this work order is written the way that the DA would write it. So the DA doesn't know the price of this stuff. I mean, you might say, yeah, but the prices are in the tablet. Yes, they are, but you might have different installers that charge different things. For example, you might have one installer that for installing luxury vinyl plank, they charge you $2 a square foot. You've got another one that charges you $1.85 a square foot. The DA doesn't know which installer you're going to use. So you don't know which one that is. The DA doesn't know what that price is. Only the production coordinator will know exactly what price that is. When the production coordinator takes this, before they give it to the installer, the production coordinator needs to fill in what these prices are so that when they give the work order to the installer, that it actually shows what the total is for the job. So it might be, I'm making a number up, it might be that for this job is going to pay $650. Okay, so when I give the work order, if I'm the production coordinator, when I give the work order to the installer knows exactly what we're doing. The installer knows what their action items are, and the installer knows that they're going to get paid $650 for this job. Now, where did the $650 come from? I'm not trying to play games with the installer. The production coordinator has met with the installer ahead of time and has agreed upon what the prices are, the unitary prices are for this. So this is what this installer charges to remove carpet. This is what they charge to install carpet. This is what they charge to install LVP. So it's not like this is a surprise. It's just that the PC is doing the math for the installer and it comes up with whatever the number is. Over here to the right, material instructions. So some of you will have your installers pick material up at a third-party receiving warehouse. Some may have the installer pick it up directly from the supplier. In some cases, the installer may be picking it up from your warehouse. This just gives you a box for you to be able to tell the installer where to pick stuff up. This is a great place for you to put your production video link and any other notes. And then the third page, whatever additional notes that you need, perfect. You can just throw them in here and let the installer have a picture of what it is that they're wanting to do. In this particular case, we've included a sort of a PDF, a screenshot of what the seaming diagram would look like. Now, I used to tell my installers, you can change the seaming if you want to, but I know that if you seam it this way, I've ordered enough material. So you can seam it a different way, but don't come asking me for more material because I know I've ordered enough material. You can see in this case, this seaming diagram says that we need 23 feet, 6 inches. That's my linear length that I need to order. And sure enough, there's my carpet. And what am I ordering? 24 feet. So I'm actually ordering 6 extra inches. I typically like to round up to the next foot. This is one work order. Let's take a look at another one. Let's take a look at another one. All right, same story, just a different job. Okay, so again, you'd have your customer name and address. This one is also laid out the way that a design associate would have done it. So the DA has no idea what the install crew is, but they would absolutely put the Salesforce project number in. The DA knew that this was from Shaw. They knew that they needed a T-mold and shoe molding. And in this case, those were going to be the same color as the floor. Okay, so that means that you're probably ordering both of those from Shaw. Aquabar, because it's a standard hardwood underlayment. Don't know where it's going to come from, just know it's going to be sourced locally. And there's a carpet, Southern Charm, and an 8-pound carpet pad that was going to be sourced locally rather than getting it from Shaw. What are we going to do? Remove carpet, install the hardwood and shoe molding, and install a transition. So this tells the installer everything that they need. Now, in this case, there is an error on this work order. There's an error on purpose. You'll notice here in the notes, it says there is furniture, but you don't see any mention here of furniture move. So I would expect, let's say that the total for this job, I'm making a number up, let's say that the total for this job came up to $750. If the installer came back and said, hey, wait a minute, I had to move furniture and it wasn't there, I want an extra $50, you know what, that might be valid because it was not included in the scope of work. Even though it was listed here, it wasn't included in the scope of work. However, if the installer came back and said, hey, wait a minute, I had to install shoe molding, I need more money. No, you don't. It was included in the scope of work, right? So this becomes, if you will, sort of a contract with your installer for this job that says, this is what I want you to do. This is what I'm paying you for. Whatever that total works out to, this is what I'm going to pay you to do this job. And again, I'm not trying to play games or squeeze the installer. These prices are what your project coordinator agreed to with the installer. And again, down below, you've got, maybe additional information. In this case, we're going to do hardwood in the bedroom and closet, and carpet's going to be in the other room. And here's a picture of the seaming diagram. Okay. So think about this, if you will. If, as I'm moving over to back to our PowerPoint, if as a production coordinator, let's say that the design associate has just come back from a job, and at the house, the design associate made sure that the proposal was complete. They made sure that they completed the customer needs template. They made sure that they did the production video. Okay, so those are 3 things. They gave the customer the project roadmap. So the customer has the project coordinator's name and phone number now. But those 3 pieces of information, complete proposal, the customer needs template, the production video, and now in the office, the DA has gone ahead and started the job jacket and has put together a work order, a complete work order. If the DA has done all of that, what do you think the odds are of the production coordinator being able to execute this job? They should be pretty high. Now, if the DA doesn't do some of it, they don't do a customer needs template, or the proposal's wrong, or the work order's wrong, well, there's a good chance you're going to have problems on the job. Right now, you guys are starting your businesses. Most of you don't have a design associate. It's going to be all you. Some of you are going to end up starting and trying to do a lot of the production work yourself, and you're going to feel like a lot of this is redundant. And I understand that feeling. I understand why it's going to feel like it's redundant for you to do a customer needs template and then do a work order, because it's all in your head and you're the one that's ordering the material and you're the one that's talking to the installer. But I want you to forecast in your mind. I want you to think ahead. You are trying to get to a $2 million business as the floor. So you need to be able to grow beyond a $2 million business. Your minimum level is $2 million, right? So at $2 million, you're running what, 5, 6 jobs a week. You're not going to be able to remember all this, and it's not going to be you doing it. It's going to be design associates handing it off to production. You've got to put business processes in place that allow for one person to land the job and then somebody else to execute the job. And right now, when it is just you doing all this, even though it feels redundant, you need to build these business practices in so that when you hire a design associate, it's not like you're creating this stuff on the fly. You're teaching the design associate to do what you've already done and what you've already proven that works. So I strongly, strongly, strongly encourage you. Yes, it's going to help you anyway. You're going to find that most design associates that are really, really strong salespeople are not terribly detail oriented. And by forcing the DA to do this, it's going to force them to slow down and document the details so that a production coordinator who is detail oriented can actually execute on the job. So what does it mean to order materials? Well, there's going to be some stuff that you locally source. Like you'll probably end up locally sourcing adhesives and trim, like your quarter rounds and baseboards, maybe even some transitions, and certainly carpet pad. The specialty carpet pads, like your Courage, your Charity, your memory foam carpet pads, those, if you're ordering those from Shaw or from Mohawk, that makes a lot of sense. But if you're just ordering a base 8-pound carpet pad or a base 6-pound carpet pad, shoot, you might even end up with a 4-pound carpet pad. That stuff makes a lot of sense to order locally so that you're not paying freight on it. If you're getting down into the 4 and 5-pound carpet pads, it's because you're saving every penny to be able to compete with a house flipper or whatever else. And the only way for you to do that is to cut as much cost as you can, and that means cutting freight out. So a lot of those things you're going to end up sourcing locally. In the beginning, especially like adhesives, I would encourage you just to order the adhesives from whoever the manufacturer is so that you know that you're getting the right one. But eventually you'll end up sourcing your hardwood adhesives and your luxury vinyl plank adhesives. You'll end up sourcing that stuff locally. When you're calling your vendor partners, make sure, especially if you're calling them on the phone, make sure to have your stuff organized, right? That work order is a great way to have everything organized so that you can simply walk down through the work order. This is what I need to order. That way you're not having to call back and add to your order. You're not having to second guess. You're not asking them to hold on while you check something. Just make sure that you've got that, right? Now you've got an online portal. One of the best ones in the world is the Shaw Now online ordering portal. You can go in and knock it out. And yeah, you could go back and add to the order or whatever else, but it's a whole lot more efficient to have your stuff together up front. When it comes to pricing, or I should say, when it comes to costs, the largest franchise owner in our system, at least as of this recording, is Jeff Bell. And Jeff Bell is in Cherry Hill, New Jersey. This is his quote, not mine. You can sell at a 50-point margin all day long as you get your costs right. So let that sink in for a second. If your cost is right, you can sell at a 50-point margin. But you can read between the lines. If your cost is not right, you never will be. So I'm going to pick on something like quarter round, something as simple as quarter round. You take a piece of quarter round. Now I can go to Home Depot and I can buy quarter round, just a basic prime white quarter round. I can get it from Home Depot for what? $1, $1.15 a linear foot. Yeah, but that's expensive. I could also go to a door manufacturer that's here in Columbia that also makes trim, and they happen to be the ones that make the trim that the Home Depot sells. And I can buy that exact same piece of quarter round pre-finished, so it's primed white. It's not painted, but it's primed white. It's the exact same thing that's in Home Depot. I can buy that from the local supplier for about 35 cents a linear foot. So I could go to Home Depot and I could buy it for $1 or $1.10, or I could go to the source and I can buy it for 35 cents. So if I'm buying it for 35 cents and I want to sell it at a 50-point margin, what does that mean? It means I'm selling it for 70 cents. I can do that all day long. When I'm looking at Home Depot's price of 110, I'm a bargain. But if I take Home Depot's price at 110 and I'm going to source all my quarter round from there, I take that price and I try to double that to make a 50-point margin. Now I'm trying to sell quarter round at 220. It's impossible. You're completely out of the market. So what I find is really interesting is that people will spend hours and hours and hours shopping online just to save $200 on a laptop. Look, if you want to save $200 on a laptop, I'm not telling you not to. You're a small business owner, every penny counts. But you at least need to spend a couple of hours sourcing trim. No, it's not as sexy, it's not as fun, but if you could spend 2 hours and instead of buying that quarter round from Home Depot or Lowe's, instead you found a way to buy that same piece of quarter round from the supplier that's supplying them, and instead of paying a buck or a buck 10, now you're paying 35 or 40 cents, you're going to save an incredible amount of money on $1 million business. If you've got a 5,500 average job size, this is $1 million business. This is half of what you're trying to get to just to be at the floor. Imagine what this looks like when you actually get bigger. But at $1 million business, that's about 182 jobs. Yeah, you can argue with me on the average job size. It's okay. Let's assume that 60% of those are hard surface jobs. So LVP, laminate, hardwood, on average, that means that you're somewhere between 350, 550 square feet per job. So you're using between 120 and 180 feet of quarter round for each one of those jobs. So I know this is a wide range, but it means that you're probably in the 13 to 20,000 feet per year. So on the course of a year, if you could spend 2 hours and you could save a quarter a foot, you would end up saving upwards of $5,000 a year. Well, that seems like a really good way to spend 2 hours to save 5,000 rather than spending 10 hours to save $200. But I know the $200 on the laptop is like an instant savings, and so people will do it. My encouragement to you is this. Yes, go ahead and spend the time to save 200 on a laptop. Great, no problem with that. But be sure to spend an equal amount of time sourcing materials like adhesives and trim and carpet pad and the things that you know you're going to need to source at a cheaper price. Make sure that you spend the time looking for those suppliers as well. And they're not as easy to find. I mean, you can Google laptops and you can just do it from the comfort of your couch sitting in the living room. For the quarter round, you're going to have to do some footwork. You're going to have to do some legwork. You're going to have to find them, and it's going to be harder to find them. It might take you a couple hours to find that person, but once you do, there's a really big advantage to it. All right, what about kitting materials? So just a note, as materials are coming in for a job, like this job that we were looking at, we've got luxury vinyl plank, we've got carpet, we've got luxury vinyl plank stairs. There's stuff that's coming from Shaw. There's stuff that's local. There's stuff that's coming from Cali. As this stuff is coming in, I encourage you to kit the materials together for a job. So yes, you're going to have stuff that comes in on pallets. You're going to have stuff that comes in on rolls. Use the bill of material on your work order to make sure that all the materials that are associated with the job are actually on hand before the job starts, not the hob. We'll get that situated. Make sure that all the materials they're actually on hand, right? So I might have a specific place in the warehouse for the Teresa job, and as these things are coming in, every one of these are being placed on a pallet for Teresa, so that on the day of the job, I can simply go to that pallet and pull everything. And this bill of material printed out on paper at 6:30 in the morning when I'm loading the installer, or when the installer is showing up to the warehouse, we can simply take this piece of paper out and check it off. Boom, 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 boom. Did we get everything on the truck? Absolutely. Off you go. Be organized with your materials. Be organized with schedules too. So when it comes to organizing schedules, make sure that you get tentative dates from installers as quickly as you can. And as soon as you get the material in place, get a firm date with them, right? Manage the dates with the customers, tentative date, firm date, whatever changes get made, maintain communication with them. And sometimes you'll have third parties, right? So you might have a plumber, you might have a painter, you might have a finish carpenter, you might have an electrician, you might have other trades that you're pulling in for this job. Be assertive with what you need, but there's no need to be aggressive with them, and there's no need to be passive with them. So what's the difference? Assertive means that we both have needs. I know that my third party supplier, let's call it the plumber, I know that my plumber has a schedule. I want to respect their schedule, but I also want to stand up for my customers' needs. Now, if I just stand on a table and scream and shout and beat my chest and say, no, you will absolutely be here at 3 o'clock tomorrow. Yeah, I might win, but I'm going to step on the plumber, and that means this is probably the last time that plumber's ever going to work for me, and the customer ends up losing. Or if I'm just passive and say, oh, Mr. Plumber, thank you very much for your time. I'll bend my will to yours. Whatever you need is what I'll do. All right, so they win, they're stepping on me, and the customer ends up losing. The right way is to be assertive with your needs. This is when I need it done, but understand that it's a give and take, and we both have to come to a solution that works. If that's the case, we all win. I win because the schedule is met, the customer wins, the third party wins because everybody's on the right page. One final note in this preparation is start to think about what you're going to do with trash removal. And this is different in different regions. In some areas, your installers will be able to take off the trash in their own vans. So they'll show up at your place in the morning, they'll put all the new materials in the van. When they get to the job site, they'll take all that out. As they remove the old floor, they'll just pack it in their van. They put the new floor in, they pack all their packaging in the van, and then they take it off to the dump. It's not fun for them at the end of the day. You might end up being charged by your installer for doing that. I know if I were an installer, I would absolutely charge for it. They might have dump fees. It may create scheduling issues because a lot of times dumps will close at 4 or 4:30 in the afternoon. So if they've still got stuff on their van from the day before, they might have to go to the dump first thing in the morning to dump before they can show up at your place. So now they're getting to your place at 9 or 10 o'clock, and it sort of puts that day's schedule behind. So just to understand that while installers, it might be convenient, it may not end up being convenient. You might end up needing to put a dumpster on site, especially if it's a big job. Now, if it's just a 1 or 2 room job, you probably don't need a dumpster on site. But if you're doing like a whole house, it might make sense to have a dumpster show up on site. If you do, find a way to protect the customer's property. I would recommend putting a piece of plywood on the driveway before you put the dumpster on the driveway so that you protect the driveway from getting all scratched up by the dumpster. Find a way to arrange schedules and expectations. Some franchisees have opted to get a dump trailer or to put a dumpster at their warehouse, at their site, so that the installers can come back and dump it there. One caution about putting a dumpster at your site, every installer in town will know that it's there. So it may be that you end up wanting to lock your dumpster and only give your installers if it's a combination lock, only giving them the combination to it. Again, I know in this area, every installer knows where every open dumpster is. And there's actually one flooring company that just keeps a big roll off in back of their site. And they tell their installers that they can dump anything in there from any job, no matter who they're working for. And they use that as an incentive for the installers to want to continue to work for them. But that's getting into the weeds. Just to understand that trash removal is something you're going to have to figure out. And different areas of the country are going to have a different solution. I know for me in South Carolina, the installers could take it to the dump. They had an annual pass, so to speak. And so I didn't get individual dump fees every time that they went. I did pay them a little extra for going to the dump, but it's not like I had a dump fee. Then I was working with a franchise owner up in Northeast Pennsylvania, and his guys were getting charged like $185 every time they went to the dump. Well, then that gets expensive really fast, and it made it really easy for him to realize he needed a dumpster at his warehouse. So just work through the math and figure out what's best for you. Talk to your installers and find out what they're doing with other people as well. That'll give you a good hint. So inside the office within 48 hours, what has the design associate done? They did all the things at the house. Within 24 hours, they created the job jacket, they created their work order, they got all the paperwork inside, the customer needs form, any finance paperwork, anything that was needed in that folder, they've got it in there. Within 48 hours, the design associate and the project coordinator need to have a handoff. They're going to review the proposal, they're going to review the floor plan, they're going to go through the production video, go through the customer needs template, go through the work order, go through everything so that now the PC feels like they actually were in the home. Ideally, the design associate and the project coordinator actually call the customer and make an introduction call to the customer. PC sends email number 1. What is email number 1? We're going to go through, one of our little diamonds is going to be to go through communication. I'll explain what email number 1 is. The design associate should go ahead and send a thank you note to the customer. The office manager, go ahead and import the job into QuickBooks, or if there's a check that needs to be deposited, go ahead and make the bank deposit. But this, within 24 hours, you've got 2 business days. Within this first 48 hours, the design associate has filled out all the paperwork they need to do. They should be able to confidently pass the job over to the production coordinator and let the production coordinator run the job. And now the DA can get out there and sell. I will remind you that the forms that we looked at today, the work order form, the job jacket form, those forms are in the same resources library that we talked about in the last module. You'll find it under the dashboard Library Franchise Owners Manual Production Management, or there is a link in this course. There is a link to the production folder in Floor 1.1. I appreciate your attention. I know this was a weighty session, but this preparation stage, if you do what's right at the point of sale and you do what's right in preparation, when you hand the job off to the production coordinator or your office manager, the odds of them being able to actually go and produce the job, they skyrocket. If you take shortcuts and you skip out on the preparation phase, you skip out on the work order, you skip out on the production video, you skip out on the customer needs template, all of a sudden these are like, every one of those is like a strike against, a strike against, a strike against. It doesn't mean that every job is just going to go sideways, but the likelihood of it going sideways goes up. So if you want to hedge your bets and you really want to make sure that you've got the best chance of success when it comes to production, you'll take the point of sale material and the preparation material seriously. You'll implement these steps in your business and make sure that not only are you doing them, but when you hire a design associate, that you're passing these skills on to them. Thank you for your attention, and I look forward to working with you in the next module.